President Trump calling on California and New York to do more to combat homelessness. New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio announcing what he calls a first-in-the-nation plan to end long-term homelessness right here in New York City. The latest numbers show almost 63,000 people live in New York City without a roof over their head. Let's bring back the mayor. And as I do that, I want to show this tweet from the president, because he just did it yesterday, give you a fair chance. So sad to see that New York City and state are falling apart. All they want to do is investigate to make me hate them even more than I should. Governor Cuomo has lost control and lost his mind. Very bad for the homeless and all. He's putting this homeless crisis in the governor's lap and your lap.
Now, look. First of all, we announced in the holiday season, I want to emphasize the humanity of homeless people here. All faiths recognize us there, but for the grace of God go we. And folks who are homeless are folks who something went wrong in their life, and some of them end up in the street. Most in this city who need shelter. We give them shelter, but some tragically end up on the street and choose to stay there. The journey home is our new vision to get those long-term homeless folks who've been out a year, 2 years, 5 years or more on the streets, get them in through intensive intervention, really connecting with them, figuring out what will bring them home, what kind of help, how we can reconnect them with family, get them mental health services, substance abuse services. We believe now, based on real facts, that we've been able to get well over 2,000 people off the streets permanently and keep them in and get them to affordable housing.
Despite
that we
that,
will be able to end long-term homelessness over the next 5 years.
According to the Coalition for the Homeless, New York's homeless levels are at the highest they've been since the Great Depression. So you may be reducing it a little. I want to quickly try to go through, researched overnight, through the pages of the New York Times. 2014, New York Times says homelessness rose in New York. They noted that the survey was conducted before you took office and that you inherited this problem, and that as a city council member you had a vacant public housing for the homeless plan, but they said did not include many details. May 2015, they say, the Times, that it ballooned under Bloomberg. Quote, it was a disaster then, it is a disaster now. May of 2015, your budget had $100 million to tackle it. August 2015, de Blasio has a $22 million plan on mental health to deal with this, but you said the homeless numbers, quote, have not appreciably increased. Later in August of 2015, the Times said Mayor de Blasio's aide on homelessness is resigning amid a crisis. Finally, December 2015, final days of your second year, they say the mayor had, quote, stirred himself to greater action on homelessness. This is the New York Times. All of those that I'm reading, and I want to be fair and say in 2016, they said you had a plan and you were offering hope for the homeless, and they gave you credit. I want to be fair. But all the other ones I read, 2014, 2015, Donald Trump wasn't in office. This is five years ago.
I haven't said the words Donald Trump.
No, I'm saying it.
But let me start. I'm talking about us first, and then I'll talk about the president.
You've been in office for 5-6 years.
Right. And so what we've been able to do is finally turn the tide. We have a plan called Turning the Tide, which is to get folks out of shelter into permanent affordable housing. It's over 120,000 people. Just check that number for a moment. Okay. 120,000 people over 6 years who were in shelter, we've gotten to affordable housing. The number of people on the streets, that quote I think you said earlier was about the number of people on the streets, that number is finally starting to go down.
Okay.
And this new plan, the Journey Home, we believe will end long-term homelessness in the city once and for all. We see other cities tragically in this country where the situation is out of control on the streets. We believe we have a plan that could work here and hopefully work everywhere to finally end long-term homelessness. But here's the problem with Washington. And this is not just Donald Trump. It's every administration over years and years and years. But the problem ultimately is Donald Trump has not shown any willingness to give us the tools we need, most especially Section 8 vouchers, which allow people to live in rental housing. That's the single strongest piece we need from Washington that we're not getting right now.
Let me play a clip. Ben Carson, the president's housing man, so that we're fair, all sides. He said in September to Fox that it was going to be weeks, not months, that they would take action on homelessness. I pressed him a couple days ago. Watch. More than 3 months ago, you said we're talking about weeks, not months. What happened?
Well, we have been out there. I have not found the same urgency in the leadership in the state that I had hoped to find. Let's put it that way.
California, he said the Governor Newsom hasn't done enough, but then he went on to quote from the Bible, as you suggested a moment ago, it's Christmas season, and that Ben Carson said, I want to find a way to come together with Gavin Newsom in California. Can you now, as we head into 2020, is there a way to put aside some of these differences with President Trump? Give me one or two things that you want to work on in 2020 that you think is reasonable to actually fix this?
Yeah. First of all, I want to say I've been working with Secretary Carson on public housing, and we've worked very productively together. We spoke a few weeks ago, and it's actually been a good news story where real progress is being made to improve public housing here in New York City, working with the federal government. Let's take that same approach now and address homelessness. Federal government needs to help us with Section 8 vouchers for decades. This was a bipartisan consensus. The federal government provided rental assistance money so people could get apartments in private housing. It was actually something Democrats and Republicans could agree on. But the numbers of Section 8 vouchers have decreased and decreased and decreased. In fact, in the Trump administration, many times you've seen the HUD budget is basically zeroed out. No additional resources to address this
So we will invite
crisis.
Ben Carson back to answer that. Is there another thing you can work on with them?
Oh, absolutely. Look, if we think about what's really happening with homelessness in this country, it is about creating affordable housing on a big scale all over America. There's a crisis. New York City has a particular affordability crisis, but in cities, even suburbs.
But what about mental
around,
health as well?
But staying here for a second, if the federal government would actually have an affordable housing policy again, which it had for decades, helping people afford homes, Section 8 vouchers, building and supporting public housing, helping us to create affordable housing. Get back to that model. Cities and states can't do it alone. If there's no federal affordable housing plan, this affordability crisis all over the country will only grow.
All right. We hope you can come together on that. Last thing, can you agree that Garrett Cole coming to the Yankees as a free agent pitcher? I know you're a Red Sox fan.
Yes.
Are you hopeful for the Yankees in 2020?
And I'm a Red Sox fan, we talked about, because I grew up in Massachusetts. I have the honor of being mayor of New York City, but my team of my youth I stay loyal to. It was not a good day for Red Sox fans
All right.
when Garrett Cole signed.
That.
I admit it openly. He's a hell of a
Mayor,
pitcher.
thanks for coming in and taking the tough
Thank
questions.
you, Ed.
We appreciate it.